Hello, Drunkduckers. This is the Drunkduck Quackcast. I'm Ocean. With me is Tance and Baines.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I was trying to do your voice too.
All right.
Excellent impression. Excellent. So today we're talking about design and technology and the way it changes. Changing tech and design.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to talk about, and our super yachts. But before we get into that, I have to bring up the theme music. And that was our theme song, of course. So now we're going to introduce what we're talking about. Changing tech and design over the years, and how that appears in comics and your stuff and how it influences things, and just changing tech and design. It's pretty cool. But so before we get into that, got to bring up the featured comic. Quackcast is going to tell us about the featured comic. Is she? No, it's me. I'm going to tell you about the featured comic. It is Temperamental. Here I am. Hello, I'm Ocean, and my feature this week was Temperamental. There's dark things going on, bad things resurfacing as restless, blood-soaked, ghastly visions disturb the present and threaten to drag people back to traumas past. Just what happened back then, and will it break those in the present? The art is all digital, very well drawn, stylized, but realistic, in black and white, grey and blood red. The story is a dark drama with hints of horror. So it will be interesting to see where it goes. Read Temperamental by Word Heart. Rated M for mature audiences only. That was Temperamental. I hope you had a look at that. It's a great featured comic. Featured comic's a great feature that we have on our site, and no other sites do it as well as we do, because we're really cool. But so that was the feature. Now the featured music. This is another excellent theme feature that we have on the site. And so Gumwallis does these. He hasn't done one this week, but I'm going to give you a best of, because we have so many. All right, so here is a best of, and it's an extra special best of this week. Gumwallis did these themes inspired by Bottomless Waitress a few years ago. He was so inspired he gave us 2. Bottomless Waitress 1. This is such a happy-sounding, southern joyful track filled with banjo and layers of guitar, twanging away, bringing notes of sunshine, natural wood, the light glinting softly through the tree leaves and making dappled shadows on the ground, perfect for an advertising jingle. Slip into a comfy booth. Get your butt comfortable on our soft cushions and enjoy a plate of down-home cooking in this fine establishment filled with a cast of friendly ladies. Try a plate of our famous bottomless fries, a cup of our delicious bottomless coffee, and the lovely bottomless waitresses. So take it away, Gumwallis, with your first theme to Bottomless Waitress. that was our first Bottomless Waitress track, and now for part 2, Revenge of the Banjo. We start off with a tractor roaring into life and a banjo opening us up to the sounds of rural Midwest America, wide open cornfields, golden wheat grain silos, quiet back roads, haystacks, big red barns, and a kinky little diner where the coffee is bottomless and so are the staff. Ava's Diner is a welcoming place for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Buttered buns, glazed donuts, and creamy desserts are a house speciality. So swing on by. No entry at the rear. We prefer you to come in by the front door. And those were our best ofs, Bottomless Waitress. That was our featured music. Oh, lovely. Okay, so now we're talking about changing tech and design over the years. So, I mean, Terrence and Baines, over the years, right, when you've owned super yachts that we've afforded through our admin positions on Drunkduck, you know, we just channeled all that money into that we should have used for upgrading the site and paying programmers and stuff. We just stolen it and transitioned it straight into our super yachts. And how have super yachts changed over the years, do you think?
Well, I remember my first super yacht. It was 8 floors high, and it was about a quarter mile long.
Wow, a little tiny one like that, hey?
How many kilometers is that? I don't even know. Probably 10.
Like hundreds.
And I remember, I remember my first one didn't even have like a docking bay for my chopper, my personal chopper. So,
oh my god!
yeah.
Can you imagine?
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how I managed. Like, I actually had to go port to port.
Right.
Jesus, you'd have to rappel off a bloody line to use a helicopter. That's like caveman stuff, Terrence. Caveman.
It is.
I know. It was.
My new one has like a sub bay, so I've got a port for my sub. I have two little boats that go in the back of the boat, so it's pretty awesome. And I have a helipad, which you need these days.
Yeah, everyone has a helipad. I mean, how do you commute without the chopper?
Yeah.
Oh, true. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. The whole ship actually goes underwater, but only once. And never comes up again.
And that's what happened to your first one, yeah. And mine only had one payphone on the whole thing. It was really not fun.
Well,
I also had to, like, my first one, I had to paint it green to make it an expense for the site.
Yeah, duck related. Yeah.
Write it off, yeah. Write it off, totally. Well, mine was actually made out of ducks, so.
Yeah.
That helped. Oh dear. Do you know what though? Speaking of super yachts, they have changed over the years. Like you look at the old ones, and they're like these beautiful things. Like they've got lovely decks of teak and all this kind of stuff, like multiple decks and railings and things. And these modern ones, they look like fiberglass, bubbly, fat things. No, it's like.
And also, yeah.
Where are the decks? Where's the entertainment area? It's all like enclosed and yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it also looks like an almost Soviet level block of flats on the boat.
I do. So. They're without design or anything. They're very unpleasant to look at. But all right, so changing design and technology in general. We were talking about cars, and that's a very specific thing. Like I don't draw many cars as part of my webcomic, but I do every now and again, especially Bottomless Waitress. Cars make an appearance. And Bottomless Waitress is sort of set in like some kind of weird, 50s to 80s, maybe into the 90s sort of thing. It's very strange, the setting.
That's exactly, it sits right in there, yeah.
But we have vehicles that reflect that, don't we? And they're sort of, oldie and, I don't know, you can't call them antique, but vintage. And yeah, they're that kind of like squarish sort of thing. And they have that old, chrome, all these bits and pieces like that vehicles used to have.
Yeah.
And we're
60s, 70s square style on some of the pickup trucks and stuff like that. I think those are sort of,
tough, made of metal, like not something that can crunch up like an envelope.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were talking about how the more modern vehicles are like a field of air with air, like they're fat little chunky high fructose corn syrup, like husky little bubbles these days. That seems to be the prevailing design aesthetic, isn't it? That roundedness. Everything is globular.
Been for quite a while now going that way. Yeah, really not.
You know what? There's either round bucket, or if you are Elon Musk, it's basically polygons that haven't rendered.
Only for his Cybertrucks. For his Tesla cars, they're fat little round things as well.
Yeah.
His Cybertrucks are a kid's design of a DeLorean, which I think is the inspiration there.
I'll be honest, and that is not an exaggeration, but it has the exact shape of the waste containers that are used over here in Greece for heavy like debris and stuff.
Like a skip bin is what we call it in Australia, but you call it a dumpster in America and Canada. And
it has this exact angle. I don't know who designed it, and they probably hated the company for some reason. Probably. But that's exactly what it reminds me of. So.
Yeah, they're unfortunate.
Yes.
Speaking from a design perspective, it has a like extreme angles, but the angles are the wrong way to make it look sleek. The way the angles are arranged make it look dumpy and clumsy.
Yeah, exactly.
Just not right.
Exactly, and somehow it fails to look sci-fi for some reason. I mean, it doesn't look like something you would see in a science fiction film unless it was a dystopian one.
Well, like Idiocracy or something, then you could.
Yeah, something that dystopian. So
it's the Crocs of cars, basically.
Oh my God.
The famous story, speaking of design and technology, the famous story, I don't know if this is true, it sounds like bullshit to me, but the famous story is that when they were doing Idiocracy all those years ago, they wanted a style of shoe that looked modern, but really crap, that no one would ever wear, and they discovered this small company that made these plastic clogs. I don't know.
The Crocs.
That's the story. They discovered them, and everyone is wearing those in that film, and suddenly,
Yes.
it became reality. Sounds like bullshit to me, but that's the story.
I don't remember exactly when those came into play.
Stranger things have happened, so
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that movie feels like, wow, we are moving in that direction.
yeah.
I mean, this is nothing fresh to be saying, obviously, but
I wish I could. I've tried to watch the movie like 3 times and I couldn't because it was just so painfully stupid. But
yeah, it's not the best Mike Judge.
I should watch it. I like Mike Judge. I like his King of the Hill. Love it. I love Daria and Beavis and Butthead. So and Office Space.
Office Space is amazing.
I don't know why, but for some reason I liked it when I first watched it. In the sense of, yeah, if idiots were in the saddle, this is exactly how things would be done. And yeah, I liked it. I liked the whole thing for some reason. I shouldn't like it, but I liked it.
But like everyone is named after a food. Or
Yeah.
It's all corporate sponsorship.
Yeah,
it's
and all,
sad, but funny.
the Fisher Price notation on all the instructions, like
Yeah. He's at the hospital saying what's wrong with him, the guy who was unfrozen from the present. And as he's talking, the admissions nurse is like her fingers hovering over all these little cartoons of different, like a knife injury, a head, injury, a cut, whatever.
I get what you mean. Yeah, simple instructions to work out what's the problem, like IKEA or something like that.
Right.
I will have to watch it. Certain things I try to watch and I just can't for some reason. And I've tried. It's just...
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time. It's not like Office Space that I watch every year. It's a little bit... Yeah, I don't know. It didn't strike me as something I wanted to rewatch either.
No. It's a one-time watch thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Technology and design. Changing tech and design. Well, one of the main ones that we know is mobile phones or cell phones.
Yes,
the way
that's
they
a
change.
huge one. Maybe right after clothing, and maybe tied with cars is the phone thing.
I mean, you can date things to the very very easily by the way those have changed from the big chunky bricks that people used to carry and car phones. Then when they were all the rage, but no one had them, so it was very limited who you could talk to and stuff like that. And I think even when people could talk on to from car phone to landline, it was very bad reception, all that kind of stuff, because the amount of towers and stuff were limited, so they weren't very good. But yeah, so then we had those, and then we progressed onto the little chunky ones that were, they had their own battery. You didn't have to carry a battery, and they were Then the famous Nokias came about. If anyone remembers those Nokias, so famous. I hated them, but everyone had them. They were the most popular phones ever. Chunky, unbreakable little Nokias. They made Finland. Oh my god. The only product Finland made.
I think I still have mine somewhere, like in the deep part of a drawer somewhere. I must have it.
Horrible little things.
Yeah.
And then it progressed into the flip phone, because camera phone became the next big thing. You had to have a camera on your phone, and phones became either... people would call them flip phones or camera phones, because that became the big thing. And the two biggest companies that were doing them were Motorola with their Razrs and Samsung, but other companies did them as well. So yeah, flip phones. Yeah. And then it became... go on.
Texting came out around there as well. like just before the cameras, we had the texting,
Yeah.
which was all the rage. Like, oh yeah, I'm receiving a text. Yeah.
Oh, texting, yeah. And it was like America was a bit slower than the rest of the world, I think, with texting, because they had this weird situation where you could only text to people with the same cell phone provider in a lot of places.
Oh, really?
So yeah, you couldn't like text to anybody. You had to text to only people who were on the same plan or something like that, or the same provider. It was really dumb. The rest of the world, we, just had it to anybody. So there's that, cell phones, but yeah, texting, camera phones, and then the next big thing was the Palm Pilot, or the BlackBerry. So that suddenly became in, and that was all the rage. So you had to have, if you had that, oh my god, you were the elite. If you had the BlackBerry, those two companies, BlackBerry and Palm, they were the rulers. And then before that, the phones got smaller and smaller and smaller. So I missed out that stage. I think that was before the cameras. The phones were getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I mean, just around the corner, like on the cusp of the transition with the cameras. That's what we had. Like the smaller, the more expensive it was.
But as soon as you had the cameras, you couldn't really have phones getting smaller and smaller anymore, because the screen was really important. You had a big color screen.
Yeah.
Before that, you didn't have the screens. So yeah, that was a big step up. So yeah, after the Palm Pilots and the Blackberries, then of course you had the transition into the smartphone, which was led by Apple with their iPhone, very quickly followed by the Android ones, and all different kinds of ones as well. There are other ones.
I also remember the Win phones. I actually had one, and I really regretted having one.
It just didn't work, did they? Windows really wanted to do it, but yeah, it just didn't quite work.
No, it was incompatible with everything. It was worse than Apple, I guess.
And Samsung tried their Badu phones. So these were phones that they were doing, like, instead of doing Android, they had Badu. So they had Android and Badu phones. And no one liked that. Nokia tried to do their own smartphones, but it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So Android took over, and Apple. So it's been the duopoly ever since. But yeah, smartphones took, and we haven't, since smartphones took over in like 2008 maybe, it's never gone back. I mean, there are people who have these retro phones, and I think the only other big change after the smartphone was the big smartphones, which Samsung led with their Notes, those big ones, and then phone. Yeah. Because before that, people didn't want to get too big. But when Samsung started that, and everyone laughed at it, going, ha, 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 look at your big phone, ha. Suddenly everybody's got them. Apple's got phones as big as that.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a big smartphone.
You got the iPad, I think around there. You also got the iPad not as a phone, but as a necessary little extra that you would find around. And now you have the flip phone again, only it is all a screen.
Yeah, they've been trying to do the flexible screen for a while, but it hasn't really taken off because it's too freaking expensive. If you want to get a foldable screen phone, it's like $2,000.
Oh wow!
The cheapest one's $1,500, something like in my money in Australian dollars. But I think if you buy them through like the telecommunications company, your cell phone provider, you can get things like cheaper. But I don't do that. I buy my phones outright if I can help it. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense to spend that much on it, on a gimmick that is not going to last. That screen's going to mess up.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't know why you would need it. I'll be honest. But also, I am not the person that really uses their phone for a lot of things beyond phone stuff, and some apps that you absolutely have to have with technology these days. That's all. I don't even have like, I only have Blue Sky on here on my phone,
Oh, yeah.
and I only have that because just in case I cannot access anything else, I can still update the duck. That's all.
Right.
That's why. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, I mean, yeah.
It's funny, like how much and how quickly, like everything you just described, that whole period of change was pretty compressed. And I know for me anyway, really the only time that I realize it is looking at movies or
Yeah.
shows or whatever from whatever the 80s and before, and then the 90s and into really the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, or the massive change where it went through all those permutations you're talking about.
Yes.
And you know, then it's shocking. Like it's like wow, like
Yeah.
rewatching Seinfeld. It's like how many stories are there about answering machines and trying to get on a payphone, and nobody can find each other because like they don't know where each other are, and if they had cell phones, the episode would be
That's what
over.
I wanted to mention. Like plot devices changed
Yeah,
according to technology, because now if you didn't want your characters to be able to find each other, you have to give them a reason to have no signal, or they are out of battery, or something that uh, denies them access to their phones.
more and more, it's a real
Yeah,
effort. Yeah, to get rid of that if you don't want it in your story. Yeah.
Oh, back in the day, yeah, you watch it when suddenly smartphones have, well, not smartphones, but phones in general had become more endemic, and all these shows really crudely. I mean, maybe they were using old stories or something like that, and they had to like it's justified. Well, they had to like obviously the characters have smartphones, and they've had to go on. Oh yes, they have phones, but they can't use them because of this reason. And it's these really bad ones. Like I can't find the signal, or I like the the battery's dead or something like
yeah,
that. But it's
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 not like a an organic kind of reason. Like oh yeah, it just suddenly happened. It's like too deliberate. It's like oh yes, cross that
Yeah.
off so we don't have to worry about that in the story anymore.
Yes,
Which
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And on the other hand, it also has um, speeds up the plot in certain ways, that you can get stuff done quickly to get to the juicier scenes. Like
it
if you want
Yeah.
someone to do research, they can just Google something on their phone
it
and
works
immediately
better.
they.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if instead of crossing them off like that, deleting them, you yes, like you say, you include it, and then it enhances things. I remember I watched the entire series of Bones, that TV series about the these people in the Jeffersonian Institute, Smithsonian, um, solving crimes and stuff, and they definitely include the fact that everyone has smartphones, and I mean, sometimes they delete them from the story in the no signal, no battery kind of way, but like 80% of the time they're an integral thing, because when characters go, oh yes, we've uncovered this kind of thing, and these characters like way off, like in the field somewhere, like, and they uncover this thing. The next scene, you're back in the the lab, and these people are talking as if they've just personally spoken to those people, and they've been updated. So it's none of this like, oh yes, we don't know what's happening, we don't know what's happening. Everybody knows exactly what's happening all the time, because you assume that they're in constant communication, like you would
Mhm.
be in
Right.
the real world, which I
And I
really
have
appreciate.
to mention that it was used very nicely as a gimmick as well. I fairly recently watched the newer series of Matlock with Kathy Bates.
Right, Matlock becomes gender bended into a new person.
I didn't even realize that existed. Wow.
Yeah, me neither. I just came across it and I said, "Oh my God, Kathy Bates accepted to do this. Okay, I'll check it out."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it did not disappoint, I have to say, because it is not a gender bend. The way they explain why she has this name is one of the most ingenious, innovative ways I have seen in remakes of series. But beyond that, and I don't want to spoil it because it is an integral part of the plot of why she's there and what she's doing. Um, is that she supposedly was a lawyer in her prime, like 30 years ago, and now she has to work again as a lawyer and has this team of researchers, paralegals, all of that. And she assumes that it won't be easy to find XYZ information or find a person and get everything you need to know about this person and her like the other character just googled and found the Facebook of this person and knew everything
Right.
in seconds. And I really appreciated that to show how there is even a culture clash between different cohorts of people and what they would expect. Also, it's a good series. I mean, watch it if you are into Matlock. I mean,
That's great. I used to like Matlock a lot. Yeah. I love Kathy Bates, obviously.
Yeah. She plays very well. So yeah.
She's very good with a sledgehammer.
See?
She is. Yeah.
And she does good work on feet as well.
The worst podiatrist ever.
Well, that's really interesting, yeah, because that's like a solidly 80s series, wasn't it? Like Matlock. And, yeah. It's been a big change. I didn't want to catch up with similar shows like Magnum PI or
most of them are really bad. Like they are really bad and really generic. But the people that made this one clearly loved the previous, the original series, and they had a lot of fun with this one, reimagining of it, and they did not undermine the old series. The one thing I will give away is that the old series exists as an actual TV show in the current series.
Oh God, that's weird.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was the first thing. Like in the first 2 minutes, you realize that, and you go, oh okay. So what are we doing here? And that's how it hooks you in. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's neat. I loved how I'll just, since there's an opportunity, I always have to bring up Better Call Saul when there's a chance because it's my favorite show. And early in his career, he dresses like Matlock. So older people, he wants elderly clients, so they'll trust him. He wears Matlock suits, and airs his commercials during Matlock reruns and airings and everything. And speaking of that show, like that's set in a time, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, set in a time, say 2008, and then Better Call Saul's a prequel, maybe around 2002.
Yeah. And
their cell phones are flip phones, and it's a running thing with all the criminals and everything in that show to make a business call, an important call or communication that's very shady, and then they break their phone in half.
They do, don't they?
That's a running thing through both of those shows. Yeah.
Wow.
The burner phone.
The burner. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's such an American thing.
I don't know. Did it work even back then? Like
I don't know if you'd kill the battery or anything that way. I have no.
No, it wouldn't. It would just like mess up the screen. You could still repair a phone that would snapped in half.
Mm.
Doesn't
Right.
destroy
Yeah, makes
anything.
Yeah, they're just exactly. Yeah. Cinematically, it works very well.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that became a big thing in stories, didn't it? Like all the criminals, they have a burner.
Yeah.
I got my go bag and it's full of passports and money and burner phones.
Yeah.
So much so that I wanted another phone. I wanted a flip phone just so I could have one. But they just added it to my account, so I can't do crimes. They'll track me down easily.
Burner phone. Oh,
I just have it in case I fall down, lose my phone.
I had friends who actually thought a burner phone was a thing. Like, I keep going down and buy one at the shop. It's not a thing. It's just what they call a prepaid phone, you tit.
They go to the store and ask for a burner phone. Yeah.
Exactly, they did.
Yeah, and it becomes a lot more mundane when, like, for example, over here in Greece, in that decade, around like early 20, like the aughts or whatever you call them, or 2010s early, every kid in Greece that was on an allowance had a burner phone,
Yeah.
a prepaid phone. That's all that it is.
I think in America it was less a thing because that was like unusual, but everywhere else in the world it was like that was a standard. You have prepaid.
Yeah.
It's just how it works.
Yeah. And you would get these very iconic uh, cards, like €5 cards or something like that, to extend the number of texts that you could send with that phone, or how many minutes you could talk and stuff. And you could see, like, there was a whole culture of, oh, I don't have any time left on my phone, so I will just call and hang up and just leave a call for you to call me.
Two
And
rings.
yeah. And that was eventually that became the trademark of someone who was a cheap mooch of everybody else.
Get you to call me, so it costs you money and not me.
Yeah.
Very clever. Very clever. Yeah. Before that, like, did we mention beepers or what are they called? Like
Pagers.
Pagers? Before that was beepers, right? So you'd have.
Yeah, it would just start beeping, and then you'd have to run to a payphone and get your message.
And paging was the step up, so like it was telegram. You'd have a little bit of text to your thing.
Yeah.
In the movie The Hangover, the first one, there's a joke where the wacky character Zach Galifianakis has a pager or a beeper. Or whatever. I guess it's a pager. And he's asking the clerk, like, "Do you guys have a payphone bank? Got a payphone bank in this hotel?"
I love that guy.
I love it too, but I'm like, a lot of people even now, like, will be like, "What? Like what? What is he even talking about? Why is what is that pager thing? Why is that funny?"
Yeah.
It's like it's all changed pretty quickly.
Or, remember, like, around the Y2K era, like the change of the millennium, the movies where you had Sandra Bullock being like a high-tech
Oh yeah,
character and using floppy disks, and floppy disks with viruses in them that she could infect,
other computers. What was that film called?
The Net.
The Net.
Yeah, The Net.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time we were considering getting a dial-up connection, and my mom was saying, like, was anything of that movie real? Like, should we get a connection like that?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, jeez. Very, very clunky, that film. Oh my god, the computers they're using are just like ancient. And then there's Hackers, which came out, a bit after that. The Angelina Jolie, that Lillard guy, and a lot of other famous actors were in that. And that's so cool, that Hackers movie. It's just a joy
I gotta
to
see it.
watch.
That must be interesting to see
And,
how a
and
hacker is portrayed.
what was that movie called? War Games, I think, or the
Oh, that
movie.
was old. That was like
Yeah, with the kids that were
1988 or something.
something like that, but were playing video games, but in reality they were actually waging real war. But I
Matthew
know that
Broderick.
I don't remember who was playing.
Yeah,
He was in War Games. I don't think I've ever seen it. I don't know if that's what it was about. But
yeah, I've seen it. I've read the book even.
nice.
Years and years ago. So the whole thing there was like he was a whiz kid. His parents had got him a computer, I think, or he bought it himself. And yeah, he managed to get online, which nobody did then because that was a very rare thing. And he was like getting online and talking to other people, and he talked to this strange thing, which was, do you want to play a game? And it was this massive computer that was, controlling America's nuclear weapons systems. And instead of doing simulations, it came online. So he was basically, instead of playing chess, he was basically playing real life nuclear war against this thing. And so War Games is about literally a war, treating war as a game, and trying to stop this computer from treating it like a real thing and destroying the world. So,
Yeah. That's it. I didn't remember the whole thing. I just remembered the gimmick. So
Yeah, really early thing about being online.
yeah.
Scary nature. Worth checking out. It's not a bad film. It's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they had some crude computer kind of stuff in that one, I think. From memory, I don't know. He was changing people's report cards. That was it, on his computer.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
That was the evolution from World War III to changing your results in school.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick took us there.
Every step of the way.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is like in like Star Trek: The Next Generation, say, where they occasionally could look up and like a historical place, or more crazily, a historical, not a famous person, but like just a regular person. It was an early episode where they were able to find some information on this cryogenically frozen woman from the 80s. And at the time, at least for me, I think I'm right about this, but there was no social media, really. Maybe email was going, the internet existed already, but at the time it was like how would that even be possible? How would they know anything just by punching it up on a computer? Like how would they know about this lady's history or about her children or blah blah blah?
If she was cryogenically preserved, probably she had at least a medical file that got digitalized.
Right. I don't know if it was presented that way in the episode or whatever. But I mean, anyway, like later with social media, like, Facebook and all social media, and maybe potentially records of all this stuff, that stuff makes sense retroactively. It's like, okay. And the same with like an AI type of computer. It's like a version of that exists now, So it's kind of crazy.
And even like if you think to the cartoon Inspector Gadget, which was not the cartoon I liked.
Another Matthew Broderick connection. Oh my god.
Not the cartoon.
To suffer through it because after Inspector Gadget there was Thundercats.
That's right. It was the same here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, same schedule.
Oh my god, it's amazing. But Penny, the insufferable know-it-all, has this book that is an electronic book thing where she looks up everything, she finds everything, she can call people. It's basically a smartphone in book shape.
That's right. And when was
Yeah.
that cartoon made? Was that mid-8? That was a little before Next Gen.
I think
Yeah.
Early 80s, or was it made even
Early
earlier?
80s, I think.
early,
Early.
early to mid
Yeah.
80s, maybe. I mean, it was. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, there
I'll
you
look
go.
it up real quick on my smartphone.
Yeah.
It was definitely early 80s. I would say like 84, maybe 85.
You have video
French.
calls as well. You know, Dick Tracy, the old Dick Tracy comics, he had a video call wristwatch.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek has all that video calling, like that now exists.
Yeah.
You know,
So
obviously.
We're doing that now.
We're doing it right now. Yeah.
first Inspector Gadget was 1980, late 1982, 1983 officially.
Wow.
So
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
But that was the French one, wasn't it, before it became English?
I don't know. I'm not. I cannot be bothered to click on the wiki page. It's just so the
yeah, it freezes up here. I think. I'm gonna check. Curious.
yeah.
Yeah, it was quite early, and it was predicted the future. Now we all have like helicopters that come out of our hats and extendable arms. Go gadget legs, all that stuff. Fantastic, yes, and grumpy men with cats and claw hands all over the place.
Yeah.
I'll get you, gadget.
Yeah, premiered at the end of 1982, like December 1982, and ran until 85.
Oh, awesome! I hated the later versions. Just can't stand them. I love the original.
Right.
I didn't like it in general.
Gadget.
I actually felt bad for that for his boss, like that poor guy, and always getting blown up, like always.
Well, it was all based on Get Smart, of course, and the boss in there always used to, he would always end up on the bad side of Maxwell Smart, who's the Inspector Gadget guy in reality, played by Don Adams, I think.
Yeah.
So, who does the voice of Inspector Gadget, which is lovely.
Wow.
But yeah, the boss would always end up very, very badly injured, or something bad would happen. So exactly the same as in the cartoon, which was marvelous.
Yeah.
So, and the technology they had in Get Smart was he didn't have a wristwatch that would be able to talk. He had a shoe that he'd pull off and dial a dial phone on his shoe. But very clever. It was a mobile phone, and that was actually done for comedy, obviously. But if you think about it, like you're a guy in the when's that show came out in the 1960s? What if you had to have a big clunky phone? Where could you hide it easily? On your shoe. It's genius. You don't have to carry it in your pocket or anything like that. You just take off your shoe, and they didn't have press button stuff then. They had dials, so it makes sense. So it's comedy, but there's a reason behind it. But very rare to have a dial phone now. It's a very retro thing. It doesn't make sense because everything needs to have buttons.
Yeah. Oh my God, do you remember? I don't know if you guys ever had that, but if the connection was like a bit breaking up or something, you would dial 0 on your dial phone to clear up the line a little bit.
Oh yeah, vaguely. I think so. Yeah.
I didn't know about that. Wow, I could have had much clearer lines.
Yeah, and it was so standard that the expression dial 0 back then meant be clearer.
Yeah.
So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Obviously, nobody uses this expression anymore because nobody would understand it. So.
It's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's funny. Technology goes backwards in a lot of ways because I'm having to over Christmas, my cat was badly injured and was in vet hospital, which is this place here anyway that's sort of on the outskirts of the city, the vet hospital. And normally you'd be able to talk to them on just, standard phones, which communication would run across wires, underground or whatever, so there'd be, the quality would be very good. But now, because we're in the future age, we've got rid of all that old crappy technology, and now we broadcast, this kind of signals via the air. So even there's no, we don't really have landlines anymore because all the communication is through the internet. So that's where the phone kind of stuff happens. And a lot of that is actually, they're not wires, and they're just broadcast through cell towers.
Yeah.
So even if you have a landline, it's not really a landline. So the quality of the phone calls in the remote areas is actually many times worse than it has been for 50 years because this technology is just not up to.
You do have optic fiber though now, which makes at least the internet speed faster, but also it gives you a quote unquote landline that.
Oh yeah, but what I'm saying is because that's in a more remote area, they don't have a cable, they don't have an optic fiber to there, so they bridge the gap by radio signals, which is of course phone lines and not phone lines, like cell towers, that kind of stuff. So that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, and that technology just is shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then the satellite phones, that's a new big thing. So, I mean, it's not new. Yeah. This is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a fake futurist. He exists by putting money into these ideas that have been around forever, but because he puts money into them, people think they're new. Because it revitalizes it somewhat, and he does this in order to create a new industry and make money out of a thing. And one of the things is satellite phones. So satellite phones have been around since we've had shortly after satellites. But because he's been able to pour money into this idea, we have the Starlink system, and we have all these specialized satellites, and people can use their internet via Starlink, and they have phones that hook up to them, so that has become useful. Satellite phones, which means you can have phone reception out in the middle of the desert or whatever, or in the middle of the ocean, which is, and that is quite useful, but it's very expensive, and it's a sort of a step forward because there's the massive range, but obviously data speeds are going to be much slower and much more limited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you also, the people that will need it are also limited in population percentage, because the people that would need reception in the literal middle of the desert are not very many. So.
And journalists might take them, and military people, doctors without borders, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a good emergency system.
And now I'm reminded of that scene in, I don't know which Jurassic Park, where the T-Rex has swallowed the satellite phone, so they can tell it is approaching because the phone is ringing in its stomach. I think it was the T-Rex. It's one of the big, scary carnivorous dinosaurs.
Yeah, I don't. That doesn't sound familiar, so I haven't seen whichever.
And eventually they find, because they need the phone to call for help, and eventually they find the phone in a big pile of excrement.
Yuck.
Through the dinosaur system. So,
it's probably Jurassic World or one of those ones, the new one.
Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. I just remember this scene because that was fun. I like that.
Yeah.
And that could probably work too, because for living creatures, we're kind of invisible to that form of radiation. It's goes straight through us, so it doesn't affect us. That's why people were really worried when 5G came out. This scare tactics. Oh my god, 5G, we're gonna have to block it. It's gonna kill us. It's gonna give us cancer. It's gonna change our brains. It's gonna activate the COVID vaccine and turn us into zombies.
Yeah.
And it's radio waves, dude. These are the same radio waves your TVs have been receiving for 100 years, and radios, and it's just simple. It doesn't affect living tissue. It generates heat is the only thing that it does. You idiots. Yeah, so we're basically visible. But if you have any kind of like structure, like a house, depending on what it's made of, it can easily block it. And my house is expert at blocking radio waves. It's freaking terrible. If someone calls me on my phone, I often have to go outside to answer because my house just blocks it like a Faraday cage. It's terrible.
Yeah. Part of my house does this. It depends. My house is whimsical in this area. Like, yeah, you can answer phones in this room, but not in the exactly adjacent room.
This is your safe room.
Yeah.
Nothing can escape.
Yeah.
Well, yes, if they were going to do some like a TV cop show or something like that, my house is the perfect place for the MacGuffin that blocks the mobile phones to work, because suddenly won't be able to communicate with anyone.
Imagine if you have like a superhero character that sees in that kind in waves, and anything that blocks this wavelength is just a patch of darkness. And
that would be fascinating if they saw in electromagnetic. I mean, we all see in electromagnetic waves because we see in light, which is a spectrum of EM radiation. But in the non-visible spectrum, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
To see the world in that. All right, we got 3 minutes left of this Google call. This particular technique. So what else could we bring up? I don't know. There's not enough time to bring up anything new, is there?
I think the phone thing is huge. I mean, you could, as far as dating movies and like seeing how they change in a story sense, anyway, like hairstyles and clothes or whatever.
You know what has changed? AI and deepfakes.
Oh, that's the new thing. Yeah, that's the. Oh, I don't even want to mention that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To talk about that.
Sorry, but in a cap show, you could have a whole plot revolving around, a deep fake, video evidence of stuff happening.
That might be the new version of sort of this period of quick change of phones. We're now at the beginning of that. Like we still don't really know where this is all going to settle down.
I hope everything in that type of AI gets banned, because it's going to it gives a lot more heartache than it solves things. So
oh, it does. It's awful. And everybody who uses it should be sterilized. There you go. All right, let's wrap this up. This has been a pretty cool Quackcast. I liked it. I really enjoyed this.
It was also a bit of a trip down memory lane for us. So.
Yeah.
We should have gone deeper into dial phones.
Oh, God.
All right, people. Thanks very much for listening to Quackcast number 723.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Tards. Bye, Baines.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Hang up the dial phone now. Ka-chunk. All right.
Please insert more quarters to continue this call.
Oh, God. Or operator.
You're actually talking to a person. That's awesome.
Yeah.